Look, I need to be honest with you right from the start. I am Ven, and I have been attending the Galactic Academy for about 3 orbital cycles now. And I thought I had seen everything. Every species, every attitude, every type of student who walks through those doors thinking they own the universe. But that day in Professor Talgren's xenobiology class, that was the day I learned that assumptions can get you killed. Or at least deeply, profoundly humiliated. The morning started like any other. The lecture hall buzzed with the usual pre-class chatter. You know the sound. 17 different species, all chattering in their native tongues or trying to show off their galactic common. The fluorescent panels overhead cast their sterile blue glow across the tiered seating. I settled into my usual spot. 3rd row from the back, right side. Perfect view of everything without being too close to the professor's line of fire. Paula, my study partner, a Vexian with 4 eyes that blinked independently, slithered into the seat beside me. Her scales rippled with nervous energy. They always did before Talgren's class. Did you finish the assignment on atmospheric composition tolerances? She whispered, 2 of her eyes scanning the room while the other 2 focused on me. Barely, I admitted, pulling out my datapad. The section on methane breathers nearly fried my brain. She chittered, which I had learned was her species' version of a laugh. Wait until we get to the practical exams. I heard Talgren make students hold their breath in simulated toxic environments. I was about to respond when the room's energy shifted. You know that feeling? When everyone's attention suddenly focuses on one point? The conversations dropped to whispers, then to nothing. I followed the collective gaze to the entrance. A human walked in. Now, I had heard of humans. Everyone had. The new species from that absurd little death world on the outer rim. Earth, they called it. A planet so hostile that just reading the environmental report made most species file formal complaints with the Galactic Council for allowing such a nightmare world to exist. Gravity that would crush a Frelian. Atmosphere with enough oxygen to cause hallucinations in Korbaks. Weather patterns that ranged from mildly deadly to catastrophically lethal. And do not even get me started on their predators, or their diseases, or their plants, half of which were apparently toxic. But seeing one in person? That was different. She looked ordinary, disturbingly ordinary. Bipedal like a dozen other species. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Hair the color of burnt copper pulled back in some kind of binding. Skin that strange, peachy brown shade humans apparently came in various versions of. She wore the standard academy uniform, a gray and blue jumpsuit that fit her compact frame well. Her eyes scanned the room once, a quick assessment. Then she moved to an empty seat in the 2nd row. Front and center. Bold choice for a newcomer. Lixa, one of the elite students from the Dravonian Empire, leaned over to Woon and whispered something. They both turned to look at the human, and their expressions could only be described as predatory amusement. The Dravonians were tall, elegant beings with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns. They considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization, which made them particularly insufferable when dealing with what they considered lesser species. Is that the Death Worlder everyone's been gossiping about? Paula whispered, all 4 eyes now locked on the human. Looks like it, I said, trying to seem casual. Truth was, I felt curious, maybe a little nervous. The rumors about humans were wild. Some said they could survive injuries that would kill any rational being. Others claimed they had persistence, hunting instincts that made them terrifying predators. One particularly dramatic story suggested a human had once eaten something called a ghost pepper on a dare and survived. The human, completely ignoring the stares, pulled out her own datapad and began reviewing notes from the previous lecture. Her fingers moved quickly, efficiently. She seemed utterly unaware of, or completely indifferent to, the attention focused on her. Professor Talgren entered exactly on time. He always did. The old Quellan believed punctuality was the foundation of civilization. His 4 arms carried various teaching materials, and his eye stalk swiveled to take in the full room. When one stalk fixed on the human, I swear I saw it pause for just a fraction too long. "Students," he began, his voice that peculiar resonating quality Quellans possessed. "Today, we will discuss survival adaptations in hostile environments, a topic I am certain that will prove enlightening for all of you." The way he emphasized all while looking directly at the human, that was not subtle, not even a little bit. Talgren was known for his teaching methods. Every cycle he would select 1 or 2 students he deemed unworthy of the Academy's reputation and systematically break them down through public humiliation disguised as academic rigor. Most dropped out. A few persevered. None forgot the experience. I had a sinking feeling I knew who his target would be this cycle. The lecture began normally enough. Talgren discussed various planetary classifications, environmental hazards, and the biological adaptation species developed to survive. He clicked through holographic displays of different worlds. Frozen methane planets where the Corellians thrived, oceanic worlds where the Thalorn evolved, desert planets with silicon-based life forms. Then he stopped on one particular display. Earth. "Ah, yes," Talgren said, his tone dripping with what I can only describe as academic condescension. "The so-called Deathworld. A planet so absurdly hostile that the dominant species should, by all logical models, have gone extinct before achieving sentience." A few students laughed. Lixa smirked. Woon made a comment I could not quite hear, but it made Horvik, another elite student, burst into loud laughter. The human, whose name I later learned was Kira, continued taking notes. Her expression had not changed. Calm, focused, almost eerily so. "Tell me," Talgren continued, now directly addressing her. "You are from Earth, correct?" Kira looked up. "Yes, Professor." Her voice was steady, not defiant, not nervous, just steady. "How delightful," Talgren said, and several students snickered. "Perhaps you could enlighten us with your species' perspective on survival adaptations. After all, your world is quite unique." The way he said unique made it clear he meant something else entirely. Kira set down her stylus. "I would be happy to contribute to the discussion, Professor." "Wonderful," Talgren replied, his eye stalks practically gleaming with anticipation. "Let me present you with a theoretical scenario." Oh no, here it comes. I had seen him do this before. The theoretical scenario was his favorite weapon. He would construct an impossible situation, ask the target student to solve it, then systematically tear apart every answer they gave until they either broke down or stormed out. Paula's scales rippled again. She felt it too. The tension building in the room like pressure before a storm. Talgren pulled up a new holographic display. "You are stranded on a hostile planet. The atmosphere contains sulfur compounds toxic to most known life. The temperature fluctuates between -40 and +50 degrees within a single rotation. Local predators have evolved pack hunting strategies. Your emergency beacon is damaged. Your supplies will last perhaps 3 local days. What do you do?" It was an impossible scenario. Designed to have no good answer, any response would be picked apart. The room went silent, everyone watching, waiting. Kira stood up slowly, she asked, her voice still perfectly calm. May I ask some clarifying questions, Professor? Talgren gestured magnanimously with two of his forearms. By all means. And that was when I noticed something. Something in the way she stood, the way her weight balanced, the way her eyes, those strange human eyes, tracked everything in the room with a precision that suddenly seemed less like casual observation and more like threat assessment. Something was about to happen. I just had no idea what. What is the atmospheric pressure? Kira asked, her tone clinical, detached. What is the gravity relative to standard galactic measurement? Are the predators carbon-based? What is the planetary rotation period in standard hours? Talgren's eye stalks twitched. He had not expected questions. Students usually just stammered and tried to answer. Let us say, twice standard gravity. Pressure at 1.3 standard. Predators are carbon-based, yes. Rotation is 32 hours. And the sulfur compound concentration? Kira pressed. High enough to be lethal to most species within hours, Talgren said, his voice now carrying an edge of irritation. Kira nodded slowly. Understood. First, I would assess whether the sulfur compounds are hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, or another variant. This matters because humans have varying tolerance levels. My homeworld has multiple volcanic regions where sulfur concentrations reach dangerous levels. I have personally been in areas with hydrogen sulfide levels that would kill most species in this room within minutes. The room shifted. A few students glanced at each other. That sounded less like theory and more like personal experience. Impossible, Lixa interjected from her seat. No sentient being could survive that. Kira did not even look at her. I was 14 standard years old. Training exercise in the Indonesian volcanic belt. We stayed for 6 days, lost 2 people, but not to the sulfur. They got careless around the local wildlife. Paula's scales went completely flat against her body. I felt my breathing appendages constrict. Professor Talgren recovered quickly. Very well. Let us make this more challenging. Add in the fact that you have sustained injuries. Broken limb, significant blood loss. Which limb? Kira asked. Does it matter? Talgren snapped. Yes. Upper or lower limb drastically changes mobility options. Assuming lower limb, I would construct a splint from available materials. Regarding blood loss, human clotting factors activate within seconds of injury. I would apply pressure, create a tourniquet if necessary, and continue functioning. Humans regularly survive blood loss that would kill most species. Our cardiovascular system has redundancies. Woon laughed, loud and mocking. You expect us to believe you could just walk off a broken leg? Kira finally turned to look at him. Her expression had not changed, but something in her eyes made him stop laughing. I did not say walk. I said continue functioning. There is a difference. Adrenaline is a remarkable chemical. It allows humans to operate through injuries that should incapacitate us. There are documented cases of humans fighting, running, even completing complex tasks with injuries that are objectively fatal simply because their brains have not yet registered that they should stop. The silence was getting thicker, heavier. Talgren, sensing he was losing control of his carefully orchestrated humiliation, pushed harder. Fine. Add hostile weather, electrical storms, acid precipitation. pH level of the acid? Kira asked. Concentrated enough to burn through standard protective gear. Human skin has multiple layers. The outer layer is already dead cells, designed to be sacrificed. Underneath, we have regenerative capabilities. Acid rain would be painful, certainly, but not immediately fatal. I would seek shelter, use local geography. As for electrical storms, assuming standard lightning, I would apply basic principles. Stay low, avoid open areas. Use the 30-30 rule. The what? Professor Talgren demanded. 30-30 rule. If the time between lightning flash and thunder is 30 seconds or less, the storm is within 6 miles. Seek immediate shelter. Wait 30 minutes after the last thunder before resuming activity. Basic survival knowledge taught to human children. Horvik stood up abruptly. He was a Kaldorian, tall and muscular by galactic standards. This is absurd. Professor, she is clearly exaggerating. No species could withstand all of that. Kira looked at him, really looked at him, and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Would you like a demonstration? She asked quietly. The room froze. Nobody moved. Nobody even seemed to breathe, which for the aquatic breathers in the back tanks was particularly impressive. Horvik puffed up his chest. Big mistake. A demonstration? Of what exactly? Your species' ability to tell elaborate lies. Of basic human reflexes, Kira said simply. Nothing dangerous, just a simple reaction test. You try to touch my shoulder. I respond naturally. 5 seconds, maximum. Professor Talgren should have stopped it right there. Any reasonable educator would have. But his pride was wounded. His carefully planned humiliation had backfired, and he wanted to regain control. Very well, Horvik, if you are willing. Horvik strutted down the aisle toward Kira. He outweighed her by at least twice her mass. Kaldorians were known for their physical strength, their military traditions. He looked at her the way you might look at a small, harmless creature. Just try to touch my shoulder when I say go, Kira repeated, her stance relaxing. She looked almost bored. Use your full speed. Do not hold back. That would invalidate the demonstration. I wanted to look away. Paula had covered 2 of her 4 eyes. This was going to be a disaster. The human was about to get hurt, and then there would be interstellar incidents and lawsuits and... Go, Kira said. Horvik moved fast, Kaldorian fast, which meant faster than most species could track. His arm shot out toward her shoulder. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds, possibly 4. Definitely less than 5. Kira was not there anymore. She had moved, not away, but into his attack vector. Her hand caught his wrist, redirected his momentum, and suddenly Horvik was airborne. Actually airborne. His body flipped completely over, and he hit the floor with a sound that made everyone wince. The impact shook the deck plating. Before anyone could process that, Kira had followed him down. She now had his arm locked at an angle that looked biologically wrong. One of her knees pressed against his spine. Her other hand rested gently, almost casually, on the back of his neck. She was not even breathing hard. Your 3rd vertebra is right here, she said conversationally, her finger tapping a specific spot. Approximately 9 pounds of pressure would cause permanent paralysis. 18 would be fatal. Humans can exert over 100 pounds of grip, strength with just thumb and forefinger. This is a basic restraint taught to our children for self-defense purposes. Horvik made a sound somewhere between a wheeze and a whimper. I am applying roughly 2 pounds of pressure right now, Kira continued. You are in no danger. However, your current position means I control your breathing, your circulation, and your mobility. From here, I have 17 different options for escalation, 12 of which would render you unconscious in under 10 seconds. 3 would be lethal within 30 seconds. This is considered a beginner-level control position in human combat training. The silence was absolute, complete. The kind of silence that happens when everyone's brain simultaneously shuts down from information overload. Kira released Horvik and stood smoothly. She offered him her hand to help him up. He stared at it like it was a venomous serpent, then scrambled backward on his own, his eyes wide with something I had never seen in a Kaldorian before. Fear. Pure, instinctive fear. Kira walked calmly back to her seat. She picked up her stylus. She resumed taking notes as if nothing had happened. Professor Talgrun's eye stalks had gone completely rigid. His mouth appendages opened and closed silently. No words came out. The door burst open. Brell, an Academy security officer, rushed in with his stun weapon drawn. "We detected an impact alert from this room. What is happening here?" Everyone looked at Kira. She looked up from her notes, genuinely confused. "We were conducting an educational demonstration, officer. Is there a problem?" Brell's weapon hand wavered. His sensors swept the room, clearly reading elevated stress levels from practically every student. His eyes landed on Horvik, who was still on the floor, looking like he had just experienced a religious awakening of the terrifying variety. Then Brell looked at Kira, sitting calmly in her seat, stylus in hand. There was the impact sensors," Brell stammered. Professor Talgrun finally found his voice. "It was an educational exercise. Everything is under control." The way he said "under control" suggested everything was very much not under control. But Brell seemed to decide this was above his pay grade. He holstered his weapon, gave everyone one more suspicious look, and backed out of the room slowly. Like you might exit a cage containing something that could eat you. The door closed. The silence continued. Kira looked up at Professor Talgrun expectantly. "Should I continue explaining my survival strategy for the scenario, Professor? I had not yet addressed the predator situation." Talgrun's eye stalks quivered. That will not be necessary. Perhaps we should move on to other topics." "Are you certain?" Kira asked, her tone genuinely polite. Human anti-predator strategies are quite relevant to xenobiology. For instance, on Earth, humans are not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most naturally armed. Yet we became the apex predator of our entire planet through a combination of endurance, tool use, and pack coordination. Our ancestors would literally chase prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion, sometimes for days at a time. We call it persistence hunting. Very few species can maintain pursuit the way humans can. Paula made a sound like air escaping from a deflating balloon. All four of her eyes were now locked on Kira with a mixture of horror and fascination. "Additionally," Kira continued, apparently on a roll now, "human pattern recognition and threat assessment operates on multiple simultaneous levels. Right now, for example, I can tell you that Lixa has been calculating attack angles for the past 2 minutes. Woon has been slowly reaching for what I assume is some kind of personal defense device in his left pocket. And at least 6 other students have shifted their positions to create potential exit routes. This is normal human spatial awareness. We evolved as both predators and prey, so we developed the ability to track multiple threats simultaneously." Lixa's hand, which had indeed been moving slowly toward something, froze completely. Her rainbow-refracted face went through several color changes that I was pretty sure indicated extreme distress. "I mean, no offense," Kira added quickly. "I am simply illustrating the point. Humans had to develop these capabilities because Earth is extraordinarily hostile. Our planet actively tries to kill us on a regular basis. Weather, geography, wildlife, microorganisms, even our plant life. Do you know we have plants that cause pain so severe that people have chosen self-harm to escape it. Or insects whose venom causes such intense agony that the pain index had to be specifically created to measure it. Or mammals that look harmless but can kill a human in seconds. She said all of this in the same calm, educational tone someone might use to discuss furniture arrangement. Professor Talgren had gone very still. Perhaps we should take an early break. Class is only 20 minutes in, Professor, Kira pointed out. Yes, well, exceptional circumstances. Talgren began gathering his materials with all four arms moving in uncoordinated jerky motions. We will resume tomorrow. Read chapters 12 through 15. Class dismissed. Nobody moved. Everyone was still processing what they had witnessed. Kira stood, packed her datapad neatly, and walked toward the exit. The students literally parted like water around a ship's hull, creating a clear path for her. She nodded politely to a few of them as she passed. When the door closed behind her, the room exploded into noise. Everyone talking at once, voices overlapping in a dozen languages. Did you see how fast she moved? Horvik is twice her size. She was not even trying hard. What kind of death world produces something like that? I sat frozen, trying to reconcile what I had just witnessed with everything I thought I knew about the yacht's universe. Paula turned all four eyes to me, her scales doing complicated patterns I had never seen before. Ven, she whispered, remind me never, ever to upset a human. Noted, I managed. Horvik finally pulled himself to his feet, aided by Wun and another student. He looked shaken in a way I had never seen a Kaldorian warrior look shaken. His species had conquered 12 star systems through military might. They prided themselves on their combat prowess, and a human half his size had put him on the ground in 3 seconds. The hallway outside was chaos. Word had spread with the speed that only academy gossip could achieve. Students clustered in groups, all discussing the incident. I heard at least 5 different versions of the story as I passed, each more elaborate than the last. By the time I reached the central hub, the rumors had Kira defeating 12 attackers simultaneously and threatening to eat Professor Talgren. I spotted her near the viewing port overlooking the Academy's garden section. She stood alone, looking out at the carefully maintained alien flora. Her posture was relaxed, almost contemplative. Against my better judgment, I approached. That was impressive. In there. She turned, and for a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Tiredness, maybe, or resignation. I did not mean to cause such a disruption. I just wanted to make a point. You made several, I said. Most of them terrifying. She smiled slightly. Humans are not actually that dangerous, you know. Not compared to what we deal with at home. I was being gentle, very gentle. That was gentle. The thought made my breathing appendages constrict again. Look, she continued, I know my species has a reputation, the death world thing. But we are not here to intimidate anyone. We are just trying to learn, same as everyone else. Earth is harsh, yes. But that harshness taught us adaptability, problem solving, resilience. Those are useful traits for any species. Before I could respond, another figure approached. Fiona, a small Prixian student who struggled with most of her classes. She was timid by nature, and I had seen her nearly drop out twice already. Excuse me, Fiona said quietly, addressing Kira. I am sorry to bother you, but I heard you mention persistence and endurance earlier. I am having trouble with the long-range navigation course. It requires sustained focus over extended periods, and my species naturally needs rest cycles every few hours. Would you have any suggestions? Kira's entire demeanor shifted. The dangerous edge vanished completely, replaced by genuine warmth. Of course, humans developed all kinds of techniques for extended focus. Let me show you a few tricks. Have you heard of interval training? Or segmented goal setting? They moved to a nearby bench, and Kira pulled out her datapad. Within minutes, she was sketching out strategies, explaining human endurance techniques, adapting them for Fiona's physiology. Her patience was remarkable. Her enthusiasm for helping was obvious. I watched this and realized something important, something the rest of the academy would eventually learn. Humans were dangerous, yes. Absurdly capable, absolutely. But they were not cruel, not malicious. Kira had not hurt Horvik, despite having dozens of opportunities to do real damage. She had demonstrated, educated, and released. The entire confrontation had been a lesson, not an attack. Professor Talgren had tried to humiliate her, to break her down using his standard tactics. Instead, she had calmly, methodically, almost gently shown everyone in that room exactly why you should never underestimate someone from a death world. The story would spread. By tomorrow, every student in the academy would know what happened. The humans would no longer be dismissed as primitive newcomers from an irrelevant backwater planet. They would be recognized for what they truly were: survivors, adapters, and potentially the most terrifying allies or enemies the galactic community had ever encountered. I made a mental note to be very, very nice to any humans I met from now on. As I walked away, I heard Fiona laugh at something Kira said. A genuine, happy sound. It occurred to me that humans contained multitudes, capable of both extraordinary gentleness and extraordinary violence, often within the same 5-second span. Professor Talgren would not be targeting anyone for humiliation anymore. Not this cycle. Possibly not ever again. And Kira? She would finish her notes, ace her exams, and probably revolutionize half a dozen fields with her death world perspective. The Galactic Academy was never going to be quite the same. And honestly, that was probably a good thing. 3 weeks passed since that incident in Professor Talgren's classroom, and the Academy had fundamentally changed in ways both obvious and subtle. The most noticeable difference was how students moved through the hallways now. Whenever Kira walked past, a respectful space opened around her. Not from fear exactly, though that was certainly part of it for some. More from a kind of cautious reverence, the way you might treat something powerful that had proven itself capable of restraint. Professor Talgren's teaching style had undergone a dramatic transformation. His famous theoretical scenarios vanished completely from his curriculum. He now taught with something resembling actual respect for his students, regardless of their planetary origin. Rumor had it he had submitted a formal research proposal to study human physiology and was waiting for approval. The irony was not lost on anyone. Horvik, surprisingly, had become one of Kira's regular study partners. I saw them in the library often, working through combat theory assignments together. He had apparently decided that if you cannot beat them, learn from them. His pride had taken a beating, sure, but Kaldorians respected strength above all else. Kira had strength in abundance. Lixa and her elite circle kept their distance, but their mockery had ceased entirely. Woon had actually apologized publicly during a joint session last week. The social hierarchy of the academy had been quietly reorganized, with humans occupying a position nobody had anticipated. As for me, I finished my atmospheric composition assignment and got a decent grade. Paula and I still sat in the same seats, third row from the back. But now we paid much closer attention when comparative biology came up in discussions. Earth no longer seemed like a bizarre anomaly. It seemed like a preview of possibilities we had never considered. I learned something valuable from those 5 seconds when the room went silent. Every species carries the marks of their homeworld, adaptations forged by necessity and survival. For humans, those adaptations just happen to be particularly impressive, particularly terrifying, and when properly applied, particularly useful. The Galactic Academy's mission statement promised to bring together the best and brightest from across known space, to foster understanding between different forms of life, to prepare the next generation for whatever challenges awaited among the stars. Nobody had anticipated that one of those challenges would be accepting that the scary monsters from the Deathworld were now our classmates, our colleagues, and quite possibly our future leaders. But here we were, adapting, learning, surviving, just like the humans taught us.